They were a people mostly lost to history for 3,000 years. Only a few references to them were to be found in ancient writings of other civilizations in the pre-Christian era, most notably Old Testament and Egyptian chronicles. But then in the late 1800s and early 1900s the ruins of their civilization were unearthed from under the sands of what is today the country of Turkey. And as good fortune would have it, those excavations uncovered over 10,000 clay tablets written by those people that provided insight into their culture. The tablets, written in a form of cuneiform and subsequently deciphered, contained some information on nearly all aspects of the Hittite way of life but primarily were centered on the ruling class and the line of kings. Though contemporaries of the Egyptians, the Hittites had a written set of laws while the Egyptians relied on tradition and the will of the pharaoh king. The Hittites were often warlike and employed an improved version of the horse-drawn chariot, but also sought peace with their neighbors through treaties and arranged marriages when deemed prudent. They existed at a time when war was a nearly constant way of life in the Middle East as it is today. At times, they were defeated and lost most of their territory. But as soon as a new crop of young men was old enough, a new leader would build an army and retake the lost territory. The turmoil within the ruling elite was punctuated with envy, murder, and deceit typical of the subterfuge that surrounds absolute control of power. Eventually, their empire fell to major conflict and marauding bands, their cities destroyed and abandoned, and people scattered throughout the area. The Hittite people were referred to during their reign as the people of 1,000 gods by their contemporaries. They differed from other conquering people. The Romans, for instance, would usually allow conquered people to retain their own religious beliefs, even if they didn't worship in the same way. In the Christian era, especially in Europe and in the New World, early military campaigns and explorers were as much about converting people through force to Christianity. Differing religions were considered barbaric, heretical, and satanic, and adherents suffered genocide if they did not convert. After Luther, these conflicts were often between Catholic and Protestant forces imposing a favored interpretation of Scripture on the conquered masses depending upon the victor. But from the Hittites' written documents, it appears that instead of imposing their gods on conquered people, they incorporated the gods of the conquered people into their religious system. Thus they became known as the people of 1,000 gods. The number of their gods became so large a special system of categorizing them was developed. Each individual member of the culture was not required to worship all the gods, and was free to choose his or her favorites. An interesting set of documents contains a set of prayers written by a ruler and conveyed to his favorite god for the restoration of health of the ruler's wife. They are poignant, emotional, sincere, and convey the strong bond he had with his partner. What is interesting is these prayers could have been written even today with just the name of their ancient god replaced with a contemporary one. It illustrates how little prayer has changed, even between differing belief systems. In 3,000 years, his wife eventually died, probably by a slow poison administered by a jealous member of the royal court. Some time ago this column wondered if humans had a war gene. A serious student of history can readily confirm that humans have been in a near continuous state of war with each other somewhere on the planet for most of recorded history and probably before. Despite calls for peace and goodwill towards our fellow man from notable figures throughout human history, humanity's time on Earth can be aptly described as constant war with occasional moments of peace. War is the violent clash between people struggling for domination of resources and preferred points of view. If there is a genetic basis for war and aggressive tendencies to the point of murder of our own kind, should we then consider it a normal part of our existence and accept that it will be with us always?